Hi, we're out on the range today, so please bear with gunfire here in the background. A while ago, I did 2 presentations on the Aguila Mini 12-gauge shells. Well, recently some viewers contacted me and asked me to do an evaluation of the Federal Shorty 12-gauge shells. So here we are. And let's start with a close-up of what these ammunitions look like. On your left is the Aguila, in the center is the Federal Shorty, and on the right a Federal 2 3/4 inch shot shell. Now, these shorter shells are labeled on the box as 1 3/4 inch. They're actually about 1 3/8 inch long, as where the 2 3/4 inch is about 2 3/8 inch long. These shells will become longer after they're fired and that crimp is flared out. Now, an interesting thing about these two ammunitions is they're both buckshot, but the Aguila shell has 11 pellets. 7 pellets of number 4 buckshot, and then 4 pellets of number 1 buckshot, as where the Federal Shorty ammunition just has 15 pellets of number 4 buck. So, fewer pellets, but some of them are bigger. So how does that compare in terms of total projectile weight? Well, I cut a few of the shells apart and weighed them, and the total weight of projectiles for the Aguila was about 305 grains, as with the Federal Shorty about 285 grains, so about 20 grains less. Now, in our previous demonstration, we chronographed and patterned and shot the meat target with the Aguila shell, so we don't need to repeat that here today. But I do want to see how the Federal Shorty 15 pellets of number 4 buck compares to the Federal 2 3/4 inch 34 pellets of number 4 buck. I also want to see how the Shorties with 1-ounce rifled slugs compare to the Federal 2 3/4 inch with 1-ounce rifled slugs. And we'll start with going to the chronograph. I have my Mossberg Model 500 shotgun loaded with the Federal Shorty 15 pellets of number 4 buck. When I load this shotgun with 2 3/4 inch ammunition, its capacity is 7 + 1. Loaded with the Federal Shorties, its capacity is 12 + 1. That might be one reason why someone would select this type of ammunition. I also have the chronograph set up at 4 yards. Typically I'll shoot from 7, but when using a shotgun with multiple projectile ammunition, I like to shoot from a closer distance. Now, when shooting the Aguila mini shells, we saw that they did not feed very well through the Mossberg Model 500 shotgun, but the Opsol adapter helped that. Well, let's see how the Federal Shorties do without using the adapter, and let's see what kind of velocities we get. 1212, and a malfunction. 1197, and a malfunction. 1250, and no malfunction. 1231. 1323. Let's shoot one more shot. And 1204. Now let's see how that compares with 2 3/4 inch ammunition. Now I've got the Mossberg 500 loaded with Federal 12 gauge 2 3/4 inch 34 pellets of number 4 buck. $12.35. $12.77. $12.11. $12.33. And $11.57. Let's go crunch the numbers. Well, I crunched the numbers, and it comes with the caveats that chronographs don't always agree with each other, and certain environmental factors like elevation and ambient temperature can affect chronograph results. Also, when shooting the Shorty ammunition, you notice that one round had a velocity that was a lot higher than the rest. When that happens, that's indicative that the chronograph has malfunctioned, or the round was defective, or maybe I just shot it through the wrong part of the chronograph. Either way, I threw that one round out in the computations. And when I computed the mean, for our 12 gauge 2 3/4 inch, I got a mean velocity of 1,222. With the Shorty, 1,218. 4 feet per second less. That's within the variation of one round to the next. That's not enough difference to make a difference. I also have to point out that when you have 12 gauge 2 3/4 inch ammunition that's loaded with number 4 buck, it typically has 27 pellets. This has 34 pellets. With more pellets, there's going to be less velocity than with the 27 pellet stuff. But still, comparing our 34 pellet to our 15 pellet Shorty, we see no loss in power. So let's set up a target and see what kind of patterns we can get with the Shorty ammo. Now I have two shoot and see targets set up, and I'll go back 20 yards and I'll shoot the upper target with the Federal Shorty ammunition 15 pellet number 4 buck, and shoot the lower target with the Federal 2 3/4 inch 34 pellet number 4 buck. Let's see how our patterns compare. You may notice that our upper target, even though shot at with 15 pellets, has more than 15 pellet impacts in it. That's because some of the pellets that were supposed to hit the lower hit the upper. They also hit off to both sides. It would appear that our Shorty ammunition holds a much tighter pattern than our 2 3/4 inch does. But we don't want to hang our hats on the results of just one shot, so I'll put up a couple of new targets and we'll try this drill again. Well, that was impressive results from an improved cylinder bore barrel at 20 yards. With our 2 3/4 inch ammo, not so much. But I'm going to put up two new targets and try this drill one more time. So our Federal Shorty number 4 buckshot compared to the Federal 2 3/4 inch number 4 buckshot, it looks like we've got just as much velocity and a better pattern. Not bad. Let's see how we do with the Shorty slugs. Now I have the chronograph set up at 7 yards and I have the Mossberg 500 loaded with the Federal Shorty 1-ounce rifled slug. And I have the OPSOL adapter in place. So let's see what kind of velocities we get, and let's see if the adapter helps these rounds feed any better. 1173, 1172, 1198, 1191, and 1189. And it looks like the adapter does help these rounds feed better. Now let's see how these compare to our 2 3/4 inch slugs. And now our Federal 12 gauge 2 3/4 inch 1-ounce rifled slug. 1467, 1497, 1461, error 3, let's adjust that. And now that we've got our chronograph adjusted, let's fire a couple more shots. 1489, 1475, and 1453. Now let's go crunch those numbers. Now there's something I have to explain about the chronograph process we just did. We got a reading of 1461, then immediately thereafter error 3. Well, that 1461 is still valid, but error 3 is a reading we occasionally get. And when that happens, what I typically do is delete that entire segment and refilm it, collecting new data. And I do that because I don't want that error 3 to be a delaying or distracting factor in the final product. And I didn't do that today because, to be blunt, these days 12 gauge slugs are getting to be hard to come by and I didn't have the ammunition to spare. So my apologies for today's presentation not being as polished as we'd like it, but the situation is what it is. So with that, I crunched the numbers, and with our 12 gauge 2 3/4 inch 1-ounce rifled slug, I got a mean velocity of 1,473. With our Shorties with their 1-ounce rifled slug, I got a mean velocity of 1,184. That's a loss of 289 feet per second, and that's a lot less. However, it's still a 12 gauge 1-ounce rifled slug coming out of the muzzle at 1,184 feet per second. And I'm going to say for most applications, that's going to be adequate. We'll put that to the test in just a few minutes. But first, let's see what kind of accuracy we can get out of these rounds. So I've got two targets set up, and I'll shoot these from 25 yards. And I'll shoot the upper target with the Federal Shorty 1-ounce rifled slug. And now that I'm out of the Federal 2 3/4 inch slug, for comparison, I'll shoot the lower target with the Remington green and yellow box 12 gauge 2 3/4 inch 1-ounce rifled slug. And let's see how the groups compare. So here's our 4 impacts, and here's our 4 impacts. The other impacts are just the wads. And remember, this is me shooting a smoothbore gun with no sight, just a bead, offhand at 25 yards. So are we getting any less accuracy with our Shorty slugs? Maybe a little. However, if you watch our presentation on the Aguila mini shell slugs, you'll see that this is a lot better accuracy than what I was able to achieve with those. However, with our Shorty slugs giving us a lot less velocity than what we're getting with our 2 3/4 inch slugs, how much less effect are we going to get on the intended target? Let's put that to the test. Now we're going to demonstrate the slug's effectiveness on the intended target by using something that's become known as the meat target. And for those who haven't seen it before, the meat target is leather couch skin followed by pork steak pectoral, pork ribs, a bag of oranges to simulate lung tissue, more pork ribs on the back, 4 layers of t-shirt on the front, 4 layers on the back, and the whole thing followed by the new and improved high-tech fleece bullet stop. Now today it isn't 4 layers of t-shirt as much as it is 4 layers of red polo shirt. Looks kind of festive, like something Santa would wear. And I've got my Mossberg 500 loaded with our Federal Shorty 1-ounce slug, and I'll shoot from 10 yards, and let's see what kind of damage we can do. Well, there's your pork steak pectoral. Here's your ribs on the front of the target. We see a lot of damage to our orange lung tissue, and the ribs on the back of the target have a 12-gauge hole through them. And that slug was stopped by about the 30th layer of fleece. Let's take a close-up look at the slug. Here's your slug. It's still all in one piece. It's flattened out a little bit. Interesting thing is, on the back of it, it has this concavity that had this polymer sphere in it, and that polymer sphere was still in there when I recovered the slug. Now I have a new meat target set up, and I'll shoot this from 10 yards with the Remington 1-ounce slug and see if our greater velocity does any more damage. Well, here's the ribs on the front of the target. We see some pretty good damage to our orange lung tissue. Now with our higher velocity slug, it retains more velocity, did more damage to the ribs on the back of the target. We see a bigger hole, and the slug hit a rib, absolutely shattered it. Also, as where our lower velocity slug was stopped by the 30th layer of fleece, our higher velocity slug penetrated all 48 layers of fleece, and I didn't recover it at all. So, similar damage, maybe a little more, obviously quite a bit more penetration. Okay, one more meat target. I've got my Mossberg 500 loaded with our Federal Shorty ammunition, 15 pellets of number 4 Buckshot. And I'll shoot this from 15 yards and see what kind of damage I can do. Well, we've got our meat target taken apart, and there's a lot of holes in the ribs on the front of the target, a lot of damage to our orange lung tissue. Our ribs on the back of the target have a lot of holes in them and stopped a lot of the pellets. There were also a lot of pellets stopped by the t-shirt on the back of the target. So it looks like a lot of damage, sufficient penetration, but not a lot of potential for over-penetration. Now, let's try one more thing. So during the chronograph segment, we saw that the Shorty shells did not cycle very well through the Mossberg 500 shotgun. But when I install the OPSOL adapter, it seems to be working just fine. Now, for those who haven't seen it, the OPSOL adapter is just a piece of rubber that looks like this. And to install it in the shotgun, I'm just going to press it in place, just like that. So now I've got the shotgun loaded with 8 of the Shorty Buckshot shells. Let's see how they work. Seems to work just fine. But there's one more question that comes up. And the question is, will the OPSOL adapter work on the Remington 870? The answer is no. So then the question is there an adapter for the 870? And the answer is, if so, I haven't been able to find one. And then the third question is, will the 870 cycle the Federal Shorty shells without any kind of adapter? Let's find out. And the answer apparently is, in a mediocre fashion to a little bit, yes, they will, kinda. So the takeaways from all of this. Well, when I've worked with the Aguila mini shells, I was not very happy with the results. By contrast, the Federal Shorty ammunition is very impressive. Now, it has downsides, such as it appears that it's not going to cycle reliably in the 870, and I'm confident there's going to be some auto loaders that won't cycle it correctly. But in a pump with the right adapter, or perhaps in single shots or double barrels, the Federal Shorty ammunition can give you a highly effective, low recoil alternative to typical shotgun ammunition. So as always, don't try this at home on what you call a professional, and thanks for watching the Federal Shorty 12 gauge ammunition video.